Maybe? Okay. All right. So we're going to take a look at Joel again. This is part 5 of our study. We're working our way through the prophets. This is our 5th week in Joel, and we might actually make it through Joel in the next couple of months. But in the previous 2 studies, we've begun to look at conditions that lead us away from a relationship with Yahweh Elohim. Now, Joel means Yahweh is Elohim. And what Elohim is telling Joel is these are the things that are causing separation. These are the things that you need to fix. And we're looking at this, and it's going to take us back into Torah, because the prophets by themselves can't stand. They have to be supported by something. So we find ourselves going back into Torah and looking at things, and then we find ourselves supporting it further in Brit Hadashah. So we get Emet, we get the beginning, the middle, and the end. But these are conditions that will bring the army that we're going to soon consider into our lives if we don't make teshuvah. And we say, well, this is just a prophet, and it's just a story, and that's something that happened during Joel's time. That army refers to a bunch of locusts that were decimating the land, but we're going to find when we begin to talk about this army that it's actually like the plagues of Egypt, things that actually affect us in our lives. So, but we've considered the effects of progressive thought, and in our last study we considered the effects of changing or dumbing down the word of Elohim. So in this 5th study of Yoel, we're going to consider the ill effects of permitting our dedicated service to Yahweh Elohim become lax or even non-existent. And we're going to see what happens when we refuse to tend the garden and actually remove the thorns and the thistles. So before we start our study, let's talk to our Elohim and get some help in taking a look at this. Hopefully I can get some help in actually getting it from my brain to my lips so that it comes out in a cohesive, understandable way. But Master Yahweh, we thank you for this time together. We thank you, Master, for your word, for your encouragement and your support in every aspect of our lives. For this study of Yoel, we ask that you will open our eyes, open our hearts, open our ears, so we will see, hear, and understand what your word tells us, how your Spirit guides us, so that we will know and we'll remember that you and you alone are Yahweh, our Elohim. We thank you for it in the name of Yahshua. Amen. So, Yoel 1 verse 9. The meal offering and the drink offering is cut off from the house of Yahweh. The priests, the Kohanim, mourn, even Yahweh's ministers. So, the meal offering, in King Jimmy it says the meat offering, but everything in King Jimmy's a meat offering. The vernacular, when it talks about that, and it talks about the meal offering, it's talking about a grain offering. Now, more than that, though, the word, what we're going to learn here in a minute, is mincha, that actually means a gift, because both Abel and Cain offered mincha. So, it's more of an idea of a gift that we offer to Elohim. So, the meal offering was an offering of grain, and as such, we might think it to be of little value. So this is kind of a deceptive way of thinking. This wasn't like today where we can go up to Kroger and get a bag of flour. This was a very serious thing. Grain in the wilderness was difficult to come by, and the grain that was to be offered was to be from the semolina of the grain. That's the best portion of the grain. And it was to be ground fine, a process that required a good amount of effort. If you've ever ground wheat, it takes a lot of work to get it to become what we see as the powdery stuff. Most of us, we can get it down to a granular-like substance that we might be able to make some semblance of bread out of. Now, consider the Hebrew word for meal offering, that is mincha. This word means a gift, a tribute, and an offering. So we might consider our effort to give Yahweh our effort to give to Yahweh is being cut off from the word hacherat, that not only means to cut off, but it also means to permit to falter. So it is our willingness to offer to Yahweh that's being permitted to falter, but that's kind of a superficial idea. I mean, it's a little bit more than what we read, but it's still a little superficial. We have to look a little closer to get a real good idea of what this is telling us, because this is a very important topic that it's talking about. So we consider the Paleo-Hebrew of mincha, and it's the word nach. And this Paleo-Hebrew of mincha, we see the nun, that is a seed that's sprouting, and then we see the het, that's a wall. So the illustration that we get is to grow or continue, or growth or continuance, either outside of the wall or inside of the wall. Growth or continuance inside of the wall or outside of the wall. And now we got to think, well, what in the world does that mean? So we have to back up a little bit, or actually we're going to back up a little bit. It says Bereshit 2, 7, and 8, but let me go just a tad bit farther back to verse 5 of Bereshit chapter 2, that says, "Now no shrub of the field was yet on the earth, and no plant of the field had yet sprung up. For Yahuwah Elohim had not sent rain on the earth, and there was no man, no Adam, to till the ground." Then we go on to verse 7 that says, "Then Yahuwah Elohim formed the Adam of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the Adam became a living soul." Then it says, "And Yahuwah Elohim planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed." And then we can go to verse 15 to kind of get the purpose of what's going on. That says, "And Yahuwah Elohim took the Adam and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to guard it." So we were created to exist in Eden. We were created to take care of the garden. We were created to take care of the things of Elohim. But because of transgression, that without teshuvah became sin, the following took place. And we go to Bereshit 3, starting in verse 22, and we know the whole story. Isha and Isha are separated. Isha gets tricked into doing the whole fruit from the tree they're not supposed to eat from, and then they try to get deceptive about it instead of making teshuvah. So now at verse 22, "And Yahuwah Elohim said, Behold, the Adam has become as one of us, to know good and evil. And now, lest he put forth his hand and take also the tree of the fruit of life and eat forever. Therefore Yahuwah Elohim sent him forth from the Garden of Eden to till the ground from where he was taken." From where he was taken. When we read about the creation of the Adam, he was created from the ground outside of Eden. And then he was placed inside of Eden. So he wasn't created there. He was placed there by Elohim to take care of it. We weren't created as part of the kingdom of Elohim. We have a choice as to whether we want to be placed there or not. And it's something that we have to constantly consider as we go through our lives. Where's my relationship with my Elohim? Huh?
Is this Ish?
Well, this is,
Adam?
yeah, this is the Adam. Yeah, this is, it says Ha-Adam. So this is the Adam. It's talking about the whole of humankind.
Yes.
There's no distinction between men or women here. This isn't the first guy, Adam. You know, we always read about it was Adam and Eve that were involved in the whole tree incident. And it drives me nuts when I read this stuff from very talented, well-known theologians that say, well, Adam and Eve ate from the fruits. And then, well, they didn't get, they weren't Adam and Eve until chapter 4. It wasn't Eve that ate from the fruit. It was Isha. So, very, very important, these little things. But anyway, verse 24. Now listen. So he drove out, remember that, he drove out the Adam. And he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden a cherubim and a flaming sword which turned every way to keep the way from the tree of life. So, while we're hanging out in Bereshit, we'll go take a look at chapter 3, 17 through 19. People saying, why can't we ever just stay in Joel? It's because in order for us to understand Joel, we have to understand what the Torah says about it so that we can grasp what it's saying. But, verse 17 out of Bereshit 3, and unto Adam he said, because you have hearkened unto the voice of your wife, and have eaten from the tree of which I commanded you, saying, you shall not eat of it, cursed is the ground for your sake. Now, he says, in toil shall you eat of it all the days of your life. You shall eat of it, basically. You shall eat of it. Keep that in mind. Thorns and thistles, that's verse 18. Thorns and thistles shall it bring forth for you, and you shall eat the herb of the field. It doesn't make a difference that the thorns or the thistles are there. You shall eat of the herb of the field. In the sweat of your face you shall eat bread until you return to the ground, for out of it were you taken, for dust you are, and to dust you will return. So in these three verses, hopefully we catch the fact that what was just being spoken to the Adam was more than just a suggestion. These were commandments. You shall. Okay? The Adam was to work the ground and extract the grain that would grow amongst the thorns and the thistles. And he was commanded to eat bread. And this is a very important thing for us to grasp. Because when we move on to Vayikra, it talks about the grain offering. A portion of the grain was to be offered. The other portion was to be made into cakes and eaten in the presence of Elohim. It's very important. It's something that we do in the presence of Yahweh Elohim. So, a portion of the grain offering was to be eaten in the presence of Yahweh Elohim. And this is very important, to be eaten in the presence of Yahweh Elohim. When we study Torah, we don't just read the Bible. Hopefully we get into a state of mind where we recognize that we are in the presence of Yahweh Elohim, and as we read, we allow the Ruach to guide us to understand what it is we're looking at. It's more than just reading. It's actually, when we go to the Scriptures, we are actually bonding with our Elohim. It's a type of the grain offering. So, the gaining of knowledge of good and evil came quickly, but it would take work to be able to grasp the meaning of the word of Yahweh, and it would be found among the thorns and thistles of the Adam's own opinions. We ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, so we're going to look at Scripture and we're going to say, according to my opinion, or according to me, this is what it says, or according to Eusebius, this is what it said, or Origen, or the Rabbi Akiva, or the Rabbi Hanazi, or I just forget it. Hanasi, that's who I'm thinking about. Phew. But the thorns and the thistles, our own opinions, our own input, and this would come to mean the difference between being inside of Yahweh Elohim's hedge of protection or outside of it. When we say the garden, we always say that we're looking forward to the world to come where we'll be in the garden. And we've studied enough to understand that we can be in the garden now, that we can take care of the things of Elohim and be hedged in by his protection, be within his hedge of protection, and be his delight. That's just what Eden means. It means delight. Gan, garden, gan means a hedge of protection. We have the choice to be in the garden or out of the garden during our lifetime. But it's a choice. Now, if we can grasp this, we can continue on with our look at verse 8 from Yoel, saying, finally, we're getting back to Joel. So we left off considering that the grain in the wilderness was difficult to come by, and the grain to be offered was to be from the semolina of the grain that was to be ground fine, a process that required a good amount of work. We considered that the word mincha meant an offering or a gift or a tribute, and we considered the effort to give to Yahweh is what is being cut off or permitted to falter. But then we looked at the Paleo-Hebrew of mincha being nach, that illustrated growth or continuance inside or outside of the wall, inside or outside the wall. So based on all of that, we could formulate an idea that it is not the offering of grain that is being permitted to falter. It is the very desire to separate it from the thorns and the thistles that is being permitted to falter. And as such, the truth that allows us to continue inside the hedge of Yahweh's protection is also beginning to falter. In this, we also have to continue that the growth and the continuance of existence outside of the Garden of Eden is also going to come to an end. We say we are living now, and we're living outside the garden in a physical sense because we were placed outside. But this existence is going to come to an end because the world to come is going to arrive. And if we haven't built our relationship now, while we have the opportunity, there's no opportunity to do it once we're dead, or when the shofar blasts and we have that final moment to recognize the word and to recognize the Torah of Elohim and say everything that Yahweh said that we will do. But this existence outside of the garden will come to an end. Everybody with me? Okay, so, all right. And we consider this at Revelation 22, 14, and 15. That said, blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have the right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city. They may enter in through the gates into the city. Then it says, for outside are dogs, and this is actually a word that means male temple prostitutes, also means pagan sacrifice. Sorcerers, this is a type of witchcraft, people that manipulate others. Fornicators and murderers and idolaters, and whosoever loves and makes a lie. Now we could take that verse and we could break it down into little bitty pieces and see that what's contained in this verse actually violates every one of the 10 Commandments. So, in essence, those who have violated the commandments of Elohim are outside. So there's quite a difference from what we see here between being inside and being outside. So to better understand this, let's consider the words being spoken by Yahshua at Luke 13, and this is 23 through 29. Then said one to him, Rabbi, are there few that will be redeemed, delivered, and restored? And he said to them, strive to enter in at the strait gate. For many, I say to you, will seek to enter in, and shall not be able to. When once the master of the house has risen up, and has shut the door, and you begin to stand outside, and to knock at the door, saying, Master, Master, open to us, he shall answer and say to you, check this out, I do not know where you are. Literally what it says. I do not know where you are. Not I don't know you. I don't know where you are. Why couldn't he find Adam after the transgression? Because it wasn't transgression, it was sin. Yahweh can't look upon sin, so he had to ask, where are you? Then shall you begin to say, we have eaten and drank in your presence, and you have taught us in the streets. But he shall say, I tell you, I do not know where you are. Depart from me, all you workers of iniquity, and there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth when you shall see Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and the prophets in the kingdom of Yahweh, and you yourselves are driven out. Why did he drive Adam out the first time? Because he didn't keep the commandments, and then when he broke the commandments that Elohim had given him, he didn't make teshuvah. These people are saying, hey, we've hung out with you and all this other stuff, but we can hang out with Elohim all we want. If we don't hang out with him according to his Torah and according to his word, then he doesn't know where we are. Does that make sense? And we see this weeping and gnashing of teeth. These people see Eden. They see it. They see the world to come. They see the beauty of it. But they can't enter in. Is this a cause maybe for weeping and gnashing of teeth when they are driven away? They're separated. They have to stay outside the gates while there's those that are inside are partaking of the tree of life. So we see a big difference between inside and outside. And they shall come from the east and from the west and from the north and from the south, and they shall sit down in the kingdom of Yahuwah. And let's see.
This kingdom is?
Huh?
This kingdom is his presence?
Well, you say the kingdom in the world to come is the kingdom under the direct rule and oversight of Yahshua, the high priest in the order of Melchizedek, who is also the king who sits on the throne and governs the people who have a proper and correct understanding of the word of Elohim, that this is the world to come. Right now, where's the kingdom? Well, it'll be in Jerusalem is the main government, but Eden was supposed to have encompassed everything. It just didn't. It stopped where it was because of transgression. So he will rule from the city of peace. So what does that mean? And that's something that we have to consider. What exactly is the city of peace?
Well, Isaiah would say it would be Jerusalem.
Yeah. Well, Jerusalem. But this is where Melchizedek was from. So, but Jerusalem is where it all starts. And I can speculate, but it would just be speculation, that everything started in Israel. And this is going a little bit off in a rabbit trail, but anthropologists are starting to wonder if life didn't actually originate in this area as opposed to in Africa because of things that they found, but that's speculation. But yes, Jerusalem is where they will rule and reign. But anyway, going back to our idea of being inside and being outside. Now, we can be inside the garden during our lifetime, but we're looking for the world to come where we're physically back where we were in the beginning. The only life to remain is and will be inside the garden. Now, listen to this, because this is kind of an important idea to grasp. Life outside of the garden will run its course and cease to exist. People ask me, well, how is he going to destroy everybody? Is fire going to consume everybody like chaff? It says outside are the dogs and the sorcerers and the murderers and the idolaters. Life outside the garden will continue to exist until it stops, because that is finite. It doesn't continue. Everybody with me? ceasing to strive to separate the thorns and the thistles from the word of Yahuwah, so that we present before him an acceptable gift, will lead to our being driven out of his presence. We must strive to know where we are, and in doing so, strive to build a solid relationship with Yahuwah, our Elohim, so that he too knows where we are and can say about us, "This is my beloved servant in whom I am well pleased." You know, just because he said that about Yahshua, when Yahshua mikvahd, doesn't mean that we can't be in the same boat where he looks upon us, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, and Elohim looks upon us and says, "This is my beloved servant in whom I am well pleased." And that's something, that's a goal to strive to. Am I living according to the commandments of Elohim so that I am pleasing, so to speak, to my Elohim? And we'll keep that in mind because we're going to consider it from a different point of view in a minute. So, going back to our verse in Yoel, we pick up with the drink offering that's also being cut off from the house of Yahuwah. Now, the word for drink offering is venesech, from a similar root, nasach, that means to pour out, but it also means to anoint or to be anointed. We could consider this a byproduct of ceasing to truly seek a relationship with Yahuwah Elohim, when we allow our diligent effort to seek Yahuwah to falter and to yield to our relationship with the carnal views and the enticements of the Satan. We not only find ourselves outside of the garden, but we also find ourselves naked as the anointing of Yahuwah also lifts off from us. What did they realize after they had eaten from the fruit? Immediately they realized they were naked, and they grabbed fig leaves and sewed them together. You know, why fig leaves? Why not banana leaves or some other thing? Because the fig leaf represents prosperity, it represents wealth. And you're trying to cover something up. You're trying to cover up your transgression with your own prosperity, your own wealth. Look at me, I'm all this in a bag of potato chips. I don't need God because I can do all things through me who strengthens me. But we find out that when Mashiach lifts off, then we're stuck on our own trying to figure out exactly how to do things, not realizing that it's not lefty-loosey, righty-tighty when there's left-handed threads, like Ed said earlier. The balance of this verse says that the Kohanim mourn, and even Yahuwah's ministers. And this phrase poses a question. Is trying to teach and inspire others to seek the truths found in the word of Yahuwah, but they refuse to listen and apply what you teach them, a cause for mourning? And that's an honest question. It's a question we can even apply to ourselves. But when you try to teach other people and they don't want to listen and they don't want to apply, is this a reason to be joyous, or is it a reason to say, wow, they're messing up their own grain offering and they're cutting off their own drink offering because they won't? So it's something to consider. So we move on to verse 10 that says, "The field is wasted and the land mourns, for the grain is wasted and the new wine is dried up and the oil languishes." The word for field is sadeh, that aside from field, more specifically means a cultivated field. Now this cultivated field should produce good crops, but it is wasted from the root, or from the word shudad, that also means to be ruined, to be spoiled, and to be devastated. So we have to look at this scenario from a point of view that the land and the field, regardless of how cultivated it might be, cannot grow grain, grapes, or olives if the weeds and the thorns have overtaken the land. Anybody ever gardened in here? Is there a reason that you pull all the weeds out of your, out of your garden? Have you ever seen the roots on some of those weeds? I mean, I pulled up some weeds the other day out of the grass, and the sucker looked like a carrot. Weeds